men and some very bold and possibly paradigm-shifting statements. In March, we saw WPP, the world's most powerful and largest agency holding company, lose 15% of its value in one day. Martin Sorrell admitted that WPP is facing both cyclical and structural pressures and has cut its long-term earnings growth target. The WPP chief executive also told investors that he was embarrassed that the group missed revenue forecasts for the year, and in fact WPP didn't just flatline in 2017, it actually dropped about 1%. Well, that's not all. Earlier in the month, Mark Pritchard, the global chief marketing officer of Procter & Gamble, said that the company is set to take more control of its own media and creative as it looks to transition its marketers from project managers to brand managers. Pritchard also made a clarion call to end archaic Mad Men model and said it was time to cut out the layers of complexity that exists within the agency model. Procter & Gamble has already outlined plans to cut the number of agencies it works with from 6,000 to just 1,250, and also said that in the case of media buying, P&G would now be doing more private marketplace deals in-house. That's not all. The plot thickens. He also said that P&G discovered, and this is important, that the average view time for a mobile ad appearing in a news feed on platforms such as Facebook was only 1.7 seconds. I repeat, 1.7 seconds. He says, and I quote, "As we all chase the holy grail of digital, we were relinquishing too much control, blinded by shiny objects, overwhelmed by big data, and ceding power to algorithms." Brian Wieser of Pivotal Research Group has said, and I quote, "We think relatively few marketers are aware of how little time is spent viewing individual ad units on Facebook." And really the same case can be made for other social behemoths as well. Now, such realizations and revelations are making everyone inside the ecosystem very, very uncomfortable. So really, what's going on? Are the gloves finally off? Has our newfound religion called digital been called out? And what are really the far-reaching impacts of what we've just seen and heard in March of 2018? With that, hello and welcome to a special brand equity debate with me, Sonali Krishna, and we're asking if the digital media is really in the ditch and what the stars foretell for marketing, media and the advertising world. To discuss and debate just this, I'm joined by the WPP India Country Manager, CVL Srinivas, Dentsu Aegis Networks Chairman and CEO South Asia, Ashish Bhasin, and Karthi Marshan, Senior Executive Vice President and Head Group Marketing, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Thank you so much for joining me for this rather special debate, gentlemen. And let me just kickstart this debate with you, Karthi. Tell me what's going on. Are we seeing the digital trust deficit really deepen, leading to fissures?
I don't think the trust deficit and digital together are the problem. I think digital has a set of problems, and on the other hand, I think there is a trust deficit issue which is a larger general business issue, which I don't think is limited to marketing, advertising. Of course, the context in which we're discussing it right now is obviously marketing and advertising. But let me put it to you like this, that when you call an interior designer or contractor to do your home up, and he or she quotes you a price and you haggle and negotiate and she finally delivers a finished product to you, she's taking a commission from, she's taking a retainer from you as well as a commission from all the material suppliers. And as a consumer, aren't you always having a nagging thought at the back of your head, wondering how much of a commission she took from you, which you could have saved, she took from the builder, which could have come to you, etc., etc. So I think this dance, this tension between buyer and seller in any conversation across the world will always persist, because the idea of transparency and trust in these transactions, I think we are kidding ourselves that it is going to be perfect. We're kidding ourselves when we think that our partners are going to behave with us as we would have with our children, right? I think that's an exaggerated notion in the first place. In the second, I'd like to say that there's one leading man I think you need to bring into this conversation along with Mr. Pritchard and Sir Martin Sorrell, which is Byron Sharp. And what Byron has been saying for a few years now, which very few people have been listening to, is that it's not wrong that digital is a bad medium. It's not that digital is a bad medium, but what is perhaps wrong is this obsession that we have got with precision targeting on digital, which is creating this problem where we are not doing what, according to Byron, is the right thing to do, which is to at all times create large swathes of awareness, and that is the fundamental job of marketing. Whereas now in this business of being precision targeting, we are probably missing the woods for the trees, and we are finding it expensive and ineffective. And as soon as something is not working, we start to turn around and blame everyone in the room, and that's the situation we are in today. Therefore, we are at a standoff. That's my submission.
Fair enough. Let me come to you, CVL, and I want really your view and put on your macro global hat and tell me what do you make of what we just saw in March in terms of course your own global results and of course the commentary that we've been hearing consistently from Mark Pritchard and of course his bold statements we heard earlier this month.
Yeah, well, the ad sector has been under pressure for some time now, at least for the last couple of years or so, given the slowdown that's happened mainly in the more mature markets, Western Europe, the US, etc. In fact, the ad market overall has been growing at like very low single digits for the last 2-3 years in these markets. India, of course, is quite different. We've been growing in double digits, and even a year like last year, which is supposed to be our slowest growth year, we still ended up growing close to 10% as a market. So the fact is that growths have slowed down, and I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that many of our large clients, especially those in the CPG sector, have been facing a lot of headwinds globally, again for the last couple of years, whether it's in terms of their own volume growths, whether it's in terms of activist investors, whether it's in terms of just needing to drive a lot more accountability. So I think a lot of that has translated into either spends coming down or agency remuneration models being reworked, etc. And which is what has led us to where we are today. But I think the debates that are going around today are all very good at the end of the day, because I think the ad sector and each of us holding groups are going to come out a lot stronger. I think we at WPP, it's only strengthened our resolve to go ahead with our with our change and at a much more accelerated pace in terms of simplifying our structure, in terms of bringing data and digital to the heart of our organization, and significantly moving up the value chain as far as our clients are concerned.
Right. Let me just come to you, Ashish, and I really want you to answer a very specific question, which is that, what is the reason that we see that there seems to be, a lack of trust in this industry? And there are clearly reasons for this, and we can't shy away from them anymore. So really your view on it from a global standpoint.
Look, I think the most important thing why agencies are finding themselves in this situation is because in 2018, essentially our business model is very similar to what it was, say, in 1985, and it can't possibly be the right thing to do. Because there are margin pressures, because there are all of these sort of environmental issues, then some of the agencies have tried to take advantage of the opacity, right? They haven't been transparent in their dealings. In fact, some of them have set up their own trading arms, etc., which were areas which always, unless it is openly sort of told to the client, will always have question marks raised. As far as digital is concerned, which has really triggered these disruption globally, I think we are still in the phase, particularly from an India point of view, forget globally, where we are still coming to grips with the animal, and we are still trying to figure out where and why and how do we control some of the areas. So it's almost, to me, it sounds like it's a bit of a work in progress. But the essential thing is that if we are going to continue working as commission agents in thinking as we were in the middle of 1980s, then in 2018 that can't possibly be the right way to do it, and therefore then you will be forced to do things which are not in the right direction. And I think that's where it all emanates from. And I would think it's an ecosystem has to now wake up and take this as a wake-up call. Clients are equally to blame, and agency groups also have to see the writing on the wall. And I feel that from here we'll start evolving a new way of doing business.
Would you have an idea as to how that evolution will happen, and what is really the new structure or the new agency model that both, Mark Pritchard and Martin Sorrell seem to be talking about, that yes, it calls for a change in the agency model and structure. What is this new structure? If I ask you to crystal gaze and give me a sense, and put all your cumulative experience together and tell me where are we heading towards? Let me start with you, CVL, on that count.
Yeah, I think firstly, we are moving to a world where, whether we like it or not, we're going to be measured in terms of how we deliver outcomes, how we impact actual business outcomes for clients. So I think first and foremost, if we have to kind of transition from agencies that we're managing throughput, managing output, etc., for us to actually not just survive but to stay relevant going forward, we need to start focusing more on outcomes, which means we need to kind of, in other words, simplify our structures, get a lot more focus going on data, on digital, maybe use a lot more technology. I think one of the areas where the ad industry in general hasn't done too well is leveraging technology. So focusing on areas like that. And then, being able to actually create tangible value for clients. And today, actually, with the amount of data, with the amount of technology that's available, I think as long as we're able to, get the right kind of focus going, we can actually contribute a lot more to our clients' business than ever before. So actually, I see a silver lining in all of this, and I think it's a great time for all of us to reinvent ourselves.
That's the ever optimistic CVL there. But let me come to you, Karthi, and I really want to call out the elephant in the room, which is really, digital, and I want to focus on that because a lot has been said about it, and I think we're very reluctant to actually discuss it. It has been the new religion. It has been, there has been a lot that has been made about it. There's been a lot of hullabaloo around it. If you're not digital, you're not cool as a marketer. You know the kind of pressures marketers are faced to actually get onto the digital bandwagon, whether they believed in it or not, just to, be with it. For the lack of a better word. So tell me, and now that there is the world's largest spender is calling it out and saying we really don't know about its efficacy, and is claiming all kinds of allegations in terms of the shady dealings one has seen within global digital agencies or holding companies, whatever the allegations may be. Give me your sense of that global commentary. And obviously, if the world's largest spender is making such grand allegations in public forums, there will be some followership for that. There will be other, clients who will follow through and ask similar questions. And there will be a rippling effect that we will see. So give me your call on that, and a really candid one, Karthi, because I know you're a very candid man.
Sure thing, Sonali, I'll do my best. In the first place, if I read Pritchard's commentary correctly, he actually does stand up for digital specifically in the context of China. And China seems to be behaving very differently from the rest of the world, and they don't seem to be pulling out their digital investments in China, where digital seems to have become everything and no one's watching traditional TV anymore, etc., etc. If I'm not mistaken, even in his own commentary, he said that. The other thing about digital, I'll say, is that, and you know that I've sat on the fence on spending on digital for the longest time, and that is because I was not enamored by the shiny object in the room. And I've always believed that when you want to have brand impact, you need to have formats which allow you to leverage the emotional impact that large formats like television, cinema, radio, as well as outdoor deliver even today. It is only in the context of nuts and bolts sales where I equate digital to being essentially a mail order, snail mail or direct mail, a grown-up version of direct mail. In that context, I think digital works gangbusters, and we've seen it happen over the last 1 year with our own purely digital offering on the bank side. So I won't diss digital completely, but I do think that yes, there has been a sort of a infatuation with digital among marketing folks. I would argue even among impressionable CEOs globally as well as in India, and that sheen is beginning to wear off. But this is inevitable. It's like the gold rush. The first time you hear about gold happening in California or wherever it is, all of us are going to rush like lemmings. Then there will be a wave of licking our wounds, learning our mistakes, but it will be a new thing that would have arrived in the world, and we will all learn how to use it and how to use it sensibly. So that period of stabilization, normalization, and then the next wave of sensible use of digital, I think, is yet to come. So you're absolutely right. It's been a shiny object, and there is a lot wrong with it. I have frequently questioned whether digital media is media at all, in the sense that we've thought of television and print and outdoor and so on as media, because a lot of digital media has been effectively personal or community in nature. It's not been mass in nature, which is changing, of course. So these are hard questions and important questions at this point in time. And having said that, like I say, I think it's not a black and white thing that digital is all rubbish. I can't say that, because we ourselves are seeing value coming from it for pure sales.
Fair enough. Ashish, let me come to you and please tell me and give me some idea as to how you see globally ad spends moving. We've seen, of course, commentary from P&G, and they've actually made some bold statements saying, they withdrew $200 million, in their online spending, and that has helped them eliminate 20% of its ineffective marketing, and it has increased its reach by 10%. So how do you see it going forward in the foreseeable future? Are you going to see further, global advertisers really, tighten their purses when it comes to online spending? Are you going to see that money being pushed somewhere else and, re-navigated to, let's say, traditional media? Or do you see overall spends just being cut?
Look, I think 2017 in a sense was a very a wake-up call year, because typically thus far what we've observed is that whenever the global economy is doing well and is growing well, advertising tended to grow even better, right? So the rule of thumb was that whatever was the global economy growth, the advertising growth would be 1.5 times more than that. Of course, it works in the reverse also, that the decline also was like that. I think 2017 was the first year where we realized that that's not necessarily so, because the global economy actually did reasonably okay. Of course, there were pockets of great growth and pockets of not so great growth, but the advertising market was not very good. And I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future, because we are undergoing a period of disruption. I don't think it's an issue of spend shifting from digital to traditional or traditional to digital. That's not going to happen in a hurry. I just think that the whole industry is undergoing a reset in a sense, because what was defined as advertising is no longer advertising. Today, one thing which Karthi said makes a lot of sense, that digital is no longer a medium. You can complete your transactions, you can complete your sales, you can complete your communication, your community building, everything on digital. Many of the agency groups and media companies who were used to seeing it from a different lens are actually finding that they're not even playing in that space. So to an extent, I would say that marketeers and advertising agencies included, this is one area where they've been behind the consumer. The consumer has actually shifted faster, and we were all still holding on to, the nice, fat, cozy way of doing business, which we had all got used to over the past few decades. And I think this is now that reset time. So I don't think this pain is going to go away in a hurry globally. Of course, in India, I feel the scenario is slightly different, and we can come to that later. But globally, definitely, this is a structural change. It's not going away.
But you didn't answer the question. But let me take it to you, CVL. Quickly tell me whether you think digital ad spends will see a drastic decline globally, and if those spends will be repurposed into traditional, or do you see an overall cut in spends?
Okay, here are two interesting data points. Globally, if you look at most of the mature markets, for every incremental spend that's going into advertising, 80% of it is going to digital media, and only 20% is going to traditional media. In India, even today, the ratio is very different. 65% of incremental ad spend in the year 2018 is going to go to traditional media even today, and only about 35%, 40% is going to go to digital. So firstly, India is still, in a kind of a different place where traditional media makes up close to 82% of the total ad spend. versus some of the other markets. And earlier you were talking about China. China, in fact, digital today is more than 50% of the total ad spend, and of course, it's got a very strong local digital ecosystem, and it's it's working pretty well for everybody there. Coming to your question, in fact, so far, if you actually look at digital spend, trends across, and I'm not looking at search and performance, etc., but I'm just looking at the spend on branding, on video, because I think that's where most of the debate is. The numbers so far haven't really shown that there have been pullbacks or there have been drops or whatever so far. But going forward, yes, I think if our publisher friends are not able to kind of come up with the right kind of solutions, especially in areas like viewability, like brand safety, etc., I would think the branding or brand-led spending on digital, some of it could kind of go back maybe to TV and other media platforms. But we've also seen in the recent past a lot of activity happening both with the digital media players as well as with industry bodies, where we are trying to get together and create standards and try and see if some of these tough questions can be answered. So there's going to be a bit of a flux in the next few months, and then, like I said, it's going to play out quite differently in India versus other markets.
Okay, and quickly, if I had to ask you, because I'm running out of time, quickly, what is the India outlook for 2018 in terms of spends and in terms of how we're going to see the ripple effect, if at all, of what we're seeing right now in terms of global commentary?
Well, firstly, in terms of spends, we see 2018 to be a bit better than 2017. We put out an estimate of 13% ad spend growth, and I think most other agencies have also been ballpark in the same range. So firstly, that's good news. In terms of the ripple effect here, I'm sure in the next few months, advertisers are going to increasingly ask the kind of questions that we've seen play out in the last few months around viewability, brand safety, etc. And there could be, in cases, a bit of holdback in spends. But if you ask me, my personal opinion is I don't think we are going to see any major shifts happening, and we'll probably end the year with about 18% of the AdX going to digital, about 45% or so going to TV, and print in India, unlike most other markets, still showing a very healthy 25-27% kind of a share of the overall ad pie.
Fair enough. Quickly, Karti, your closing comments of, whether A, you agree with Srini's comments on there won't see much of a change in India, or you think Indian marketers will also start doing some heavy-duty due diligence?
I'm afraid Srini is right. I'm sad for my community, but I'm afraid he's right. But you asked a business model question to these two gentlemen, and if you don't mind, I'd like to step in there and say that this is something that Pritchard has hinted in his article as well. And I think the way to fix the industry is for creative and media to come back together. Because what has happened to media, it has been rendered a commodity, and that's why Pritchard says he's able to insource it and run it at home, because it just requires data scientists and algorithms to do the media piece. So best price for a commodity product is actually zero, or whatever competing bidders are willing to pay. Whereas the best price for a creative product, a great creative product, which is a brilliant idea, is infinite, right? You and I will both pay an arm and a leg and everything we have for a great Picasso painting, because we are not able to judge what is the right price for it, because there is no right price. And that, I think the advertising industry lost the plot when media and creative separated. If it comes back together and they're able to fire on all cylinders, I think that will fix the industry. It's obviously not an India question, it's a global question, however.
Fair enough. Whether we will continue with the disintermediation model, we'll have to see. But let's go to you, Ashish, and give me the closing words about, the India impact and the ripple effect we'll see because of this. Do you see people getting more cautious here?
I think definitely there'll be more focus on transparency and on deliveries, but I see digital being by far the fastest growing medium. The advertising market, according to the Dentsu Aegis Network report, will grow at around 12%, while digital will grow between 25 to 30%. We also anticipate that by the year 2020, roughly 1/4 of the entire Indian advertising market will be digital, and I don't think that's something that's going to change in a hurry. I completely agree with what Karti just said. We need to move into the model which we at Dentsu Aegis started a while ago. We call it the one P&L, which is that you've got to be, agencies started giving various services under different nameplates in a sense, but those became almost silos. We now need to bring it together. We call it one P&L. We work it under one sort of roof and give the specialisms, because you can't now go back to generalisms, give the specialisms, but give it under one P&L. And that, I think, is probably the only solution which can save us. We're happy to be a little ahead in this race, but I'm pretty sure all agency groups are looking at it and will get onto that soon.
Wow, I love all the optimism you three men have brought to the table. I do think, of course, that these are very, very difficult times for people like Ashish and Srini, who are heading, conglomerates in India. But let's see how, the tide goes. I'm not so sure I share your optimism. But on that note, thank you so much for taking time out and really spending time discussing the various headwinds we've seen in March. Thank you so much.